You're walking alone at night through the Whitechapel district of London. It's 1888. You reach into your purse to check for your keys on the way home. When you look up, you notice a mysterious, shadowy figure standing in the street. He's wearing a long Victorian overcoat and a tall top hat, and he's heading straight towards you. Right as he passes by, he drives a blade into your stomach. You can't move. You try to scream for help, but nothing comes out. You see his eyes, his face. That's the last thing you'll ever see. You weren't the only one, but here's what makes your story different from every other victim on those streets. The last image your eyes captured before you died almost caught your killer. The human eye holds a secret most people have never heard of. It has memory, a very specific, very strange kind of memory. And the man who discovered it was one of the most respected physiologists in the world, Wilhelm Kuhne. He found it almost by accident during an experiment on a frog. He forced the frog to stare directly at a window for several minutes, then killed it instantly. He removed the retina and submerged it in a chemical solution in total darkness. When he took it out and held it up to the light, he could see it. The window, burned into the tissue like a photograph. He called it the optogram. That discovery sent shockwaves through the forensic science community. If a frog's dying eye could retain an image, could the same be done with a human? Could doctors extract the eyes of a murder victim, develop what was inside, and find the killer's face staring back at them? In 1880, Kuhne got his answer. A man named Erhard Gustav Reif was executed by guillotine in Heidelberg. The execution was scheduled for dawn. Kuhne was waiting. Within minutes of the blade falling, he had the eyes. He performed the extraction, the fixation, the development process, exactly as he had with the animals. What he found was blurry, indistinct, not a clean photograph, but there was something there, a pattern of light and dark, something the dying man had seen, preserved in tissue. Because if a guillotined prisoner's last sight could be partially recovered, what about a murder victim? What if they had looked directly at their killer? It's 1888, Whitechapel, London. Jack the Ripper is killing women in the East End and vanishing without a trace. Police have nothing. No suspect, no weapon, no witnesses. A doctor named Robert Anderson proposed something remarkable to Scotland Yard. The Ripper's victims, several of them, had been found in the open street. They would have seen their attacker's face clearly in the gas lamp light. Extract the eyes, develop the optograms, see the Ripper's face. Scotland Yard considered it seriously. There are documented internal memos debating the procedure. They ultimately didn't go through with it. But here's what matters. In Germany, it actually made it to trial. In an 1887 murder case, a prosecutor argued that an optogram recovered from the victim's eye showed a figure, and that figure matched the accused. The defense called it speculation. The judge agreed. The optogram evidence was thrown out, but it had been presented in a real courtroom against a real defendant. By this point, the problems with optography were becoming impossible to ignore. Human death is messy and slow, nothing like a controlled laboratory execution. Eyes cloud, pupils dilate, rhodopsin degrades within minutes. Even in perfect conditions, the images were faint, blurry, and wildly open to interpretation. You could see almost anything you wanted to in them, which, in a murder trial, is exactly the problem. But then something happened that nobody had predicted. Killers heard about optography, and they started acting on it. In the 1880s and 1890s, there was a documented rise in a specific type of post-mortem mutilation. Killers, or people suspected of killing, were destroying their victims' eyes, gouging them, cutting them, pouring substances into them. Investigators at the time made a direct connection. These were people who had read about optography in newspapers, who believed that the image of their face was trapped inside those eyes, and were trying to destroy the evidence. Think about what that means.
A theory so convincing, so scientifically credible, that killers changed their behavior because of it. They mutilated victims to defeat a technology that didn't fully work. The fear of being seen, even in death, was so powerful that it shaped how murders were committed. If the science was real, why did optography disappear entirely? Here's why optography died. It wasn't fraud. Kuhne's science was real. Optograms in laboratory animals are reproducible to this day. The problem was the human body. Death isn't a clean moment. It's a cascade. Blood pressure drops. Pupils dilate uncontrollably, flooding the retina with unfocused light. The image, if there ever was one, blurs into noise within 2 to 4 minutes. Most murder victims aren't found within 2 to 4 minutes. And even when they were, as in Kuna's guillotine experiment, what came back was barely interpretable. The science was real. The application was impossible. But here's where the story takes one final turn. In the 1990s, researchers using digital imaging and electron microscopy re-examined the question, not to recover crime scene images, but to understand rhodopsin degradation at death. What they found was that in controlled conditions, with eyes removed and fixed within 90 seconds of death, faint spatial data could still be detected in human retinal tissue. Not a photograph, not a face, but a directional record. Evidence of where the eye was pointed at the moment of death. Not enough to identify a killer, but enough to tell investigators whether a victim saw something coming or was taken completely by surprise. He wasn't wrong. He was just 150 years too early. There's something that stays with me about this story. Not the science, not even the murders. It's the killers who mutilated their victims' eyes. Because those people, whoever they were, believed in something so profound that what the dying see matters. That the final image of a human life has weight, has evidence, has truth in it. They were wrong about the technology, but they weren't wrong about the idea. Every forensic advance in history, luminol, DNA, digital imaging, is built on the same belief, that the dead leave traces, that the body remembers what happened to it, that the truth of a violent death doesn't vanish when the victim does. Wilhelm Kuna believed the eye was the last camera, the last honest witness. He couldn't make it work, but he wasn't wrong to try. If you've made it this far, you'll probably like the last video I put up. It's about the chemical that makes blood visible decades after it's been cleaned. It's linked right here.